What's going on, everybody? It's Willoughby's, and welcome back to the Lore Chronicles. We have DLC Season 2 competitive Lorcana announcements. Presumably, every single DLC has been announced, and while that in and of itself is exciting, there is, of course, some downsides to all of this. So we do our best to get into it, to talk about everybody's positive feelings, negative feelings, and everything in between. But we're only two people with just our opinion, so please be kind to us in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on the DLCs, what we might have missed or forgotten to talk about, and of course check the timestamps in the description. There's lots of interesting parts of this discussion. We want to make sure that you see all of it when you're able to, but besides that, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps the channel out a ton. And of course, massive congratulations to DKP, our first ever Disney Lorcana World Champion. And besides that, everyone at Ravensburger, all the players at Worlds, facilitators, casters, everybody involved in making Worlds happen, congratulations and shout out to you all. It was a great show. All right, enjoy the discussion. All right, so Worlds just happened this past weekend. Super exciting. 2 full days of Lorcana. It was amazing. Obviously, we saw DKP win to be the first ever Disney Lorcana World Champion. Very exciting stuff. There's a lot to say about Worlds, but that's not what you all came here for, right? The biggest thing to come out of Worlds, we're just going to get right into it, is, of course, the news of DLCs. Now, for NA and even Europe, there are only 3 DLCs apiece. Obviously, a lot of players had been hoping for a full DLC roadmap, such as ourselves. I was betting that they were going to give us a full roadmap, and they did, right? So it seems like there would be a lot to celebrate. But if you look online, there is anything but celebration. Many players are upset that there are only 3 DLCs in North America, notably excluding places like Canada, where they went to before, or across the pond for EU, places like the UK, France, I believe, that used to have DLCs are no longer getting any. So a lot of people are kind of mixed. Some people are happy to have news. Some people are happy to have news, but then they're upset at what the news is. There's a whole lot going on, and there's really a lot to break down. And we're going to look at some of the tweets, community sentiment, and everything that's going on. But overall, how are you feeling about only 3 DLCs being announced for NA?
Yeah, only 3 DLCs is rough, obviously, for North America. But like, when me and Dan shot the video with all the announcements, it was right after the first announcement, which was the best of 3 stuff, and how many were in Europe. Which, as a dumb American, I also didn't know where any of those towns were located. So I was just over the moon thrilled that they started announcing things, that it was best of 3 instead of best of 2. And, the promos and stuff like that were going to be different. I was worried we were still going to be fighting for Rapunzels that we could only use in Infinity.
In 44, yeah.
And the fact that there will be an Infinity DLC.
Right.
So I know that a lot of the people local to me said that if Infinity wasn't actually supported by Ravensburger, they were probably done. So hopefully I'll still be seeing them, come to the store. And we plan on having an Infinity night dedicated weekly. So.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of mixed emotions. I think the biggest concern that players are raising is that small number, right? Only 3. How many did we have before? I think we had at least 6 before DLCs.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
So we got cut in half, right? And then a lot of players. So that's the biggest concern. To talk about some of those other things that you mentioned though first, before, like I said, we read all the tweets and talk about all the things. DLCs are going to be 3 game format. That is a win. I think everybody can agree. It's good.
I saw some people mad about it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I mean, no matter.
Can't please everybody.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's just a thing.
Yeah, can't please everybody, but I do think in large part, right, best of three is a win. A lot of people are going to be happy about that. A lot of people feel that is a more skill intensive way of, like, you know, determining the winner and what have you, and helps the play draw disparity and whatever. So I do think that's a win. 12 rounds as well is another big change, right? How do you feel about the difference from 9 rounds to 12 rounds? But it is a cut to top 32 instead of cut to top 64.
Right. Not that I want this game to like perfectly copy Magic the Gathering, but I was used to a high number of rounds. I was actually used to you had to win a certain number of rounds day one to even play in day two. But I was used to a high number of rounds cut to top 8. And then prizing paid out to like top 32, top 64, top 128, depending on how many people there were. So I think that this is also a very welcome change, because it was rough when, you know, people would start off 5-0 and then draw for 4 rounds.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think this helped alleviate that a ton.
I agree. I do think that is going to help. That sort of, yeah. If you, as long as you get 5 wins, you're just going to gamble on whether or not you're going to bubble out or not, or make it in or whatever. But
and it looks like you could play all 12.
Yeah.
Like if you just want to play every single round of the DLC, you can, and I think that's great. I also think it's great that, like, if you know you're not in contention, when you get your 5 wins, you could also just drop and get that promo.
Yeah. I agree. I do think something that I've seen kind of players raising concerns about. Now, I haven't done the math myself. Maybe someone like Frank Karsten will jump in and let us know all of the statistics that we need to know. But some people were saying that basically a record like 10-2 could still not be good enough to top 32, depending on the number of players. So people are speculating that they're going to double the amount of players. You know, it used to be 2,000, could go up to 4,000, things like that. And they were saying, you know, depending on the player cap, having it be 12 rounds, even though, you know, there's more rounds, it actually is going to be harder, where you need something like a, you know, over 90% win rate or over 80% win rate in order to guarantee a top cut. And then with there being like less spaces, you know, for the championship or the world championship, whatever, that it actually technically DLCs have gotten harder, or like qualifying has gotten harder. Like I said, I don't know the specific math on that, but I think it's worth bringing up. Is there anything that you think, at least initially, on like whether or not it's been made harder based on the number of rounds and the cut to top 32 to actually make it?
This is the same as Magic, so I'm just used to it. I don't know. Like, I think people really need to understand that, like, I am incapable of living in everyone else's shoes, and like even like seeing everyone's viewpoints just with the way my brain works. What's the whole reason we started this podcast is that me and you are completely different people with different life experiences, and because of our different life experiences, draw different opinions, right? So like I encourage anyone in the comments to like leave a comment to educate me, because I'm uneducated on a lot of this stuff. So in Magic, like I played in a 3,000 person tournament, and I was 1 round off of qualifying for the Pro Tour at like X3 or something like that. So it might have been X4, and it was a grind, and it's just something that I'm used to. Like,
yeah. I think, like I said, I don't actually know the math, and we don't have the player counts, so it's you know, it remains to be seen whether or not they've, like, at least from a mathematic perspective, are going to get harder to qualify for. I think at the very least, you know, obviously it's very disheartening that something like 10-2 wouldn't be good enough. Like the idea that you could win, you know, 10 games, only drop the ball on 2 of them, and still not make it into a top cut, obviously is a tough pill to swallow. You have to be playing very well to you know, win 10 games. So I do understand the initial like kind of gut reaction to be like, oh, I don't like that. I will say, on some level, we're here to play. You know, it is a competitive tournament by nature. And so while me personally, like, that sucks, like I do get in my head, I get very defeatist. I'm like, man, you know, do I really need to have an 80% or better, or a 90% or better in order to make it? That, to me, like, the player in me is discouraging. But if I'm trying to be as objective as possible, you know, looking at these players, Zan Syed, DKP, Frank Karsten, you know, Edmund Shue, the list goes on and on and on, that played in Worlds. Like, those are players, like, that top, you know, 0.00001% that make it there are, you know, good enough to go the distance with something like better than a 10-2 record, or to have a better than 90% win rate. So while I'm not thrilled, like, the player in me, I do think from a competitive standpoint, it's okay for it to be hard to top a DLC, or to, you know, make it to Worlds. That's just kind of like the nature of the game that we're playing, is kind of where I fall with that. But it does suck. Like, I would love for it to be like, you know, 10-3 could make it, or whatever, you know, like, just so you could drop the ball a little bit more. But I do think ultimately that's not what those events are built for. So
Yeah, I do think it would be much better if it was record based, but then you get like an uneven top cut split, so it's difficult. Like, you know, in Magic, it cuts to top 8 in a 7,000 person Grand Prix, which has happened.
that's crazy.
So, yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll kind of say on that is, like, and like you said, the whole point of this channel is, like, you having card game knowledge from playing other TCGs and me not, is like, the point is, like, we want to be able to look to someone like you who can, like, compare it to something like Magic. And I do think for anybody who might be annoyed, like, well, this isn't Magic, the thing is, like, Magic is, right, like, in essence, the first TCG for many, you know, Dominion aside and other things like that, but, like, for all intents and purposes, right, Magic the Gathering was, like, the first to do it, and also the first to do it well, and, like, realistically will just be around forever, right? And so I think that it's okay to look to Magic as kind of like reference points, even guiding lights sometimes. I think it's also okay for us to want to be better than Magic, but I do think, like, looking at Magic as sort of like a benchmark and being like, well, what are they doing, you know? Because, like, if that's acceptable there, it makes sense looking at the people that work for Lorcana now, right? A lot of them are former Magic employees. That's just public knowledge. You can look at that on, like, LinkedIn and whatnot. You know, that's also why I think we can use Magic as a point of just comparison and kind of, like, grounding ourselves of, like, what to expect. So it's not to say that, like, well, Lorcana should just do it the way that Magic does, but it's to say, like, well, this is what we can expect based on the trends of, like, what has come before. I do think we should push Lorcana to, like, I guess, quote, be better than Magic. I don't think it's a problem to, like, want Lorcana to be better and to say something like, let's make top cuts record based. But I do think as we're taking these things, you know, as they come, right, announcements by announcements, as they figure out this game, as they hire new people, as the DLCs change and they get feedback and what have you, I just think that's naturally going to be part of the conversation. So I do want to point that out to anybody who may be like, why does he reference Magic so much? I think that's why, and I think it's relevant. So anything else you want to say before we kind of move on to some of the tweets I've seen?
It'd be cool that if you bubbled, you got some kind of point system, and then if you did it enough, you qualified for nationals. That's all.
I totally agree. I think that's, like, a really great suggestion. Yeah, and just, like, more ways to qualify, which is actually going to come up in some of the tweets. All right, so let's take a look at this here. This is just, obviously this is a lot of screenshots at once. We're going to read everything to you, but this is just to show you kind of, like, the diverse range going on out there, you know, on social media, and then also a little message from Rochelle here. So we'll start with what Rochelle has said before we say anything else. So Rochelle, if you don't know, someone who works for Ravensburger, I'm some sort of, like, community manager in essence. I don't think that's the official title, but you get the idea. So Rochelle is very vocal in the public Discord, and she's basically responsible, per her words. I saw her say this last night. She basically reports community sentiments to the big heads over at Ravensburger and etc. So she said, Coop and I, which is Cooper, who we saw on the World's live stream, basically announcing DLCs and stuff, have been talking a lot about the feedback/reactions today, and I hope to talk more soon, but we need approvals when it comes to being more open. So I'm not sure how soon it will be. I just want to take a moment to say I really appreciate this communication, basically saying, hey, we hear you, we see you. We're literally, what'd you say?
We're handcuffed.
Yes, like, we're literally not allowed to say more. but we're acknowledging that we see it. And I do think that's kind. Rochelle and anybody at Ravensburger does not have to do that, you know? So just to say, like, look, we see it. I do appreciate that communication, and similar to like many sentiments we've had on this channel with give them time, they listen to feedback and they make changes when they can. Obviously a lot of these things are like, you know, they do them 6 months out or however much you have. So even if it's not this season, maybe it's a next season thing. The point is they're listening and they see it. That is important. All right, so we just wanted to get that on there. I'm going to leave it on the screen because I think it's so important to mention that that is the baseline, is like, hopefully there will be more to come soon when they are able to say it. All right, let's start up at the top. Traverse Tavern, we've talked about his tweets on the channel before, and he said, not gonna lie, I don't think I've been more disappointed in the community than the reaction to season 2 info. So he's saying this is his low for the community, is seeing the way that everybody has reacted to DLC. So this is obviously someone that is presumably, you know, or just this tweet kind of represents people who are happy, excited, grateful about the news of DLCs and think of it positively. Other two tweets before we kind of talk about it as a whole. We got Dre, who says, coming from West Coast, it's going to be rough for people to afford attending all of these events, and that's if they can even get in. And it's a picture of the United States, and it shows how all of the events are either Midwest or East Coast entirely, right? So nothing towards California. You know, we had something in Seattle before, nothing around there. Texas, kind of that like central point of the US, nothing, right? So everything is sort of towards the East Coast. Which is a problem for many. And then we got one more from LD Lorcana Decks. Says 4 European DLCs took place between May 2024 and September 2024. 3 European DLCs are scheduled to take place between September 2024 and September 2026. As a deeply invested player, what am I supposed to infer from this? Is there more news to come? And then there is a follow-up tweet here, also from LD, that says, in my opinion, the crucial missing element is something to grind for between these events, an alternative path to continentals of some kind at a more regional level. Perhaps this will come as part of the third-party support. Regardless, it would be great to see a full season 2 OP program. So this is someone basically saying, like, one, super like cutting back the amount of DLCs in such a stretched out time span, and then two, like, what's basically missing is, other than DLCs, can we get more, right? Some other ways to qualify, some Ravensburger supported and approved, but not necessarily run by events that can qualify people, etc., etc. So wide range here. What do you think about basically the distance of DLCs and the community being disappointed versus the community being excited? There's a lot to kind of undergo here.
Yeah, so you mentioned Franz thinks or speaks for people that like are excited about this. I don't think that's necessarily true, because I'm also excited that we have a DLC roadmap. But I'm not disappointed in anyone's takes, aside from the people that are like specifically attacking like Ravensburger employees.
Sure.
I have, like, obviously we've seen some of that, and that's not good. Like, most of the employees at Ravensburger don't actually have a say in this.
Right,
you know?
right, at all.
And what's it called? So I am excited about this announcement for a couple of reasons. One, my expectations were in the gutter.
Sure.
Right. We were catching flack 6 months ago for saying that, man, is this game gonna survive? You know, and now a lot of people's sentiment is, wow, is this game gonna survive after this announcement? Right.
Yeah.
And like when I say things like I'm confused by everyone's response, it's because like I said earlier, I can't think about things the same way everyone else does. I should also mention, not everyone on the Forbidden Mountain has the same response. There are people that are furious about this announcement and are like, I might as well just call it in. And there are people that quit the team and the game during that 6-month period. They were just like, yeah, we haven't had anything. It doesn't look like we're getting anything anytime soon. Like, I need to stop basing my life around, you know, this card game. which I fully understand. And then also when I'm looking at stuff, it's from the sense that like this card game is my life, which is unhealthy for most people, maybe even unhealthy for me, you know. And the past couple months, I thought I might be like exclusively playing in Japan for the next like 2 years, right? So I was thrilled when they announced the European ones because I was just like, I can go there instead. It's best of three, you
Mhm.
know. Uh, what's it called? Yeah, I mean, what are your initial reactions?
I
Because
Yeah.
mine were happy, and I still think that there's more to come. But I want to hear you first.
Yeah, for sure. I was excited that we got DLC announcements. When I was watching Worlds, I was watching it delayed, so I wasn't like in real time with everybody in the chat. So this was my genuine reaction without being influenced by anybody else. I was excited that they were announcing DLCs. I was happy, and I felt relieved, you know, that we did get, presumably, it's kind of debated whether or not this is technically the full roadmap. I believe it's the full roadmap. But like it was, you know, I was happy to see that they did give us that they did say, here is all of the competitive play that you can expect from this next season. I thought that was important. So while I am excited and grateful that we got that news and that full roadmap, we know exactly what to expect for our next competitive season. I do think it is fair to say that cutting the number in half is jarring and upsetting and maybe even concerning for certain members of the community. I also think that for someone like me, right, we talked to those different experiences. It's someone like you, is maybe able, willing to go to Europe, go to Japan. Someone who's like me, who's not able to, I definitely understand why people are upset. Even being like, I'm also fortunate enough to be on the East Coast, so it's going to be infinitely cheaper for me to fly to all three of these DLCs than it is for someone in like California or Seattle, right? So even from that perspective, I understand being upset that they are in a large, like for all intents and purposes, pretty concentrated area and part of the country. That makes sense to me. So I do think when players are looking at it from the perspective of, one, now if I want to go to DLCs, they're more expensive, right? Before, everybody had at least one that was like in their region of the US, right? Like kind of in their area of the US. And then two, you know, the number that we had when the demand was so high, many people got waitlisted, couldn't get tickets, sold out in seconds. They've essentially slashed those numbers in half without confirming how many players, right? So some people are like, what if there's still 500 players? What if it's still only 1,000 players? I can understand why people are upset. I think ultimately I'm trying to remain positive and feel like, okay, maybe if there's less, the you know, the amount of player cap is going to be higher, or the fact that we have announcements at all is maybe going to help keep people in the game and trying their best. But I'm grateful, but ultimately a little hesitant, and definitely would love to hear more from Rochelle and Cooper and the team at Ravensburger, hoping to improve based on the feedback. I don't think it's fair to say that it is 100% positive, the DLC announcement, but I do think the announcement in and of itself was a positive thing to give us the full roadmap. Hopefully that makes sense, but I do think that's my initial
Oh
reaction.
yeah, I agree. Like I'm also disappointed that there's only three.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in a different way though than a
Hmm.
lot of other people, which like I didn't initially think of. The literally the only person that I thought of was you.
Oh
That's
wow.
because we spend so much time together, and because I thought it might be difficult for you to fly home on Mondays now,
Yeah.
and you know, stuff like that. Like even though you are on the East Coast, you're also all the way on the bottom of the East Coast.
Yeah.
So like
It's a trek.
only Richmond is like that good of a flight, right? And like I'm driving to Gen Con, which is in Indianapolis in the same convention center as one of these. And like because the flight would have been the same as when I flew to Seattle. So I don't know what flights cost from California to India and stuff like that, just because I don't live in any of those places and I've
Right.
never looked. Like again, I'm uneducated on a
Right.
lot of this stuff. So what I feel bad for especially is people that like don't want to use planes for whatever reason, and people that would want to attend like one DLC or two DLCs that they could drive to. Like a lot of my local players went to Atlanta and they expected to like play 3 rounds and get their Dragonfire and then like just play for fun or drop and start playing inside events. That
Mm-hmm.
was like their actual expectations that they told me they had, you know. So, uh I think I also am like reading stuff behind the scenes that hasn't been announced, that, and by reading I mean like I'm inferring, not
Yeah.
that I've
Yeah. Yeah.
actually read anything. So, coming from a Magic background, Magic took a hiatus right for the pandemic, and they just recently came back and had what they would refer to as DLCs, right? So when they announced that, there was I think 5 in the US, 1 in Japan, and 2 in the UK.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so like I felt like we had season 1 and then we had nothing and not even a break between season 1 and season 2. Like I wouldn't even refer this as season 2. I would refer to this as the reboot.
Right.
Like
Right.
James Gunn came in. He's remaking Superman, right? As far as I'm concerned. So was really expecting even less than what we got, and I was just going to be, happy with my porridge, I guess. But okay, I've worked with Pastimes in the past. I used to vend Grand Prix. I'm on their vendor list for Magic Grand Prix
Who
still.
is Pastime for the people at home?
Pastimes is the tournament organizer that is running the North American events.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Pastimes is also located where all of these events are being held. They are a regional organizer. Back when I vended Grand Prix, there wasn't just one organizer, which is now Star City Games. There were regional organizers. There was Pastimes, there's Channel Fireball, there's a bunch of different ones, okay? And most of Pastimes Grand Prix would be in these places because it is where they have convention centers locked up, just like how PPG has convention centers locked up year after year after year. It takes, I would say, 2 years on average to get a significant amount of space in a convention center. It could be quicker if like someone cancels. It could be a lot longer, okay? This is why companies like WWE will run shows in the same towns year after year after year, right? This is why you'll find Magic the Gathering Grand Prix or Yu-Gi-Oh! YCSs or Pokemon events in the same places, every few years or months or whatever, okay? So I think the biggest problem here is that for some reason Ravensburger is only working with Pastimes. I don't know what happened between them and PPG. No one does. I don't think they're ever going to talk about it, but like clearly they could have also been working, like hired PPG, unless something crazy happened, right? So if they would have done that, we would have had the same exact ones we had last year plus these ones.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that with all of the community feedback that they will reach out to more regional tournament organizers and see if they can get them to run more events. I also think that Ravensburger doesn't have the money to run these events, which is like going to be a hot take. Ravensburger, don't be mad at me. This is just what I'm inferring.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these, a lot of Grand Prix that I attended, the buildings were paid for with the money gained from vendor tables. Like we would, as a vendor, we would pay some amount of time in advance, and then I think the organizers would literally take those funds and pay the convention centers for the building space. I had heard something about like most of these tickets are going to go on sale like at the same time, I think that Ravensburger is using the money from the ticket sales to pay for the rest of the season, basically.
Mm.
I think that if they do well, that it is highly possible. I don't know if it's likely, but it is at least possible that the people at Ravensburger can talk to whoever they need to talk to and be like, look at how much money this gained. It costs nothing up front. Let's do more.
Mhm.
I also think it's possible that they've been in talks with convention centers and that at some point during this season might be that 2-year mark where they can actually solidify it. One of the not great things you can do is announce very little. One of the worst thing you can do is announce more and then take it away and
Mhm.
like later have to retract what you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's also talk about these buildings. Sorry,
Well, hold on.
um,
I'm going to
okay.
let you get into the buildings. Let me recap. You said a lot for the people. Let me recap for anybody who might be lost. I have it on the screen here. Basically, what you're saying is to start comparing it to Magic, right? Magic only had 5 in the US, and Magic is huge, right? So, in all intents and purposes, Lorcana's not doing anything crazy, right? 2 in Europe, 1 in Japan. Like, to scale back in this way, again, we already talked about why compare to Magic, so we will leave that alone. But just to kind of recap, something as big as Magic, with I would say way more players than Lorcana, only had 5 in the US, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing you were kind of talking about there, this is all alleged, nobody sue us. I think for people that missed it, Pastimes is the, like you said, tournament organizer that's hosting these DLCs similar to PPG did. So it's basically what you're speculating is the only reason they're in such a concentrated area is because of who's running them, right? Like that's the buildings that Pastime has secured. It's not as easy for Ravensburger to just go to a bunch of different big conventions that can hold as many people as they probably want to hold and be like, hey, we need a slot on this day, because it's probably booked up by something like PPG or Pastimes. So what's easier to do is to just work with people who already have these spaces and fill them in. And it sounds like, you know, if these do well, obviously we have no way of knowing because nothing's been announced, but what you are purely speculating is that they could work with something in like similar to Pastime, similar to PPG in, you know, on the West Coast, and then we'll have maybe 3 more over there, but it would be definitely dependent on like how well they sell and things like that. Am I following?
Yes, that is my speculation
Great. And
and my
also,
hopes.
yeah.
To
No,
be
I
fair.
agree. And I think that's helpful for people to hear, just to kind of like know that like it doesn't have to be all over, and this could be just a jumping off point. I also want to highlight one more thing that you said, for people who are like, well, who is this guy? Why do I care about this guy's just like random thought speculation that he's just like pulling out of thin air? Actually, where you're pulling from is not only your years of experience as a player and just like being, you know, seeing the trends of these card games, but like you said, you've been a vendor and you've worked Grand Prix and things like that, and you've owned a card store. So I do want to just like point out that like I think it's fair to say that you're pretty knowledgeable in the business side of like just card games as a whole, and that's where like these thoughts are coming from, right? It's not like someone like me who's never really done anything with card games, never owned a business, and just kind of being like, I don't know. You actually have a lot of like, I think a lot of leg to stand on based on trends that you've actually been physically there and involved in and knowing the financial side of this. So I just wanted to point out kind of like why you feel even like qualified to like speculate on these things, because I think you've truly been around long enough in more than just like a player perspective, but actually on the business side of it to understand how these things work and where they might be coming from. But yes, please, now that I've said
Yeah,
that, take us to the buildings, unless you want to say anything else first.
I was just gonna say I've cut Pastimes many $10,000 checks.
Yes, so
So that was for businesses that I've owned, not my personal funds.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the buildings, right? One of them holds Gen Con. We just did like quick Google search. Gen Con has 70,000 attendees. I'm going to assume that means over 4 days, not like 70,000 at one time.
Sure.
I have been there. It is giant,
Mhm.
right? Uh, so I don't like, obviously nothing can be uncapped technically and like legally for fire code reasons, but I had never played in a Magic Grand Prix that was capped.
Mm.
Like there have been 7,000 person Magic Grand Prix, 5,000, 3,000, you know. I had never played in one where like when they started, and again, I haven't played for 9 years, but I'd never played in one where when they started selling tickets, they said there's only this many. Like sometimes I would drive to the Grand Prix and pay there in person. Like that was before Channel Fireball took over like all of them and streamlined everything. But yeah, and then the other building in Milwaukee, I believe, also used to hold Gen Con.
Yes.
And we looked on the Wikipedia page in the early 90s. They had how many people? Like 17,000 or something like
18,000
that.
people broke a record.
Right. And then one thing that you said was, wait, is that all in one room? And my response was, well, the World Series of Poker breaks tournaments into multiple rooms right now. So I don't think that it has to all be in one room. They can just put up, you know, their little signs that says like table 500 through 1,000 this way, table, you know, however many this way, you know. Yeah. So, and then Richmond, I don't know that building specifically, but I am told that it is also massive, and I have been in there to play Magic Grand Prix and Star City Games cons. So I'm also assuming that that one should be, you know, quote unquote uncapped, right?
So you're speculating by talking about the buildings. We're just speculating that it's possible that, you know, for many people who are concerned, like, oh, it's only going to be, you know, 1,000 players, 2,000 players. You think it's actually possible, or maybe even likely that they could be actually uncapped, for example, or even go up to, like you say, 7,000 players because these buildings are just so big. So do you believe it's possible that it may be a thing where it's like, yes, we only have 3, but they are going to basically anybody who wants to play in them can play in them?
Yeah, I think that is a strong possibility. And then annoyingly, it's still going to exclude the people that can't or don't fly.
Right.
But at least, like, a big thing I've been seeing is, great, now we're going to fight bots, which we don't know what the attendance is. So I think that that's, like, hard to assume. Also, out of the 6 I went to last year, I actually got into them 10 minutes later than the tickets went on sale 4 times.
Yeah.
So I also don't know if that was a problem. This might have been like a Fanfinity problem that, again, I haven't lived that experience, so I don't know about.
Yeah. I mean, and to be clear, obviously it's not a perfect solution, you know, more players, because like we talked about earlier, while I don't know the exact math, cutting to top 32, regardless of however many rounds you have, if it is something like 7,000 players, it's still going to be brutal, right? But I guess
that they would say it multiplies over a certain amount.
That would be nice too, right? Like the thing is, they're just not saying enough. It's like they're close. I think the biggest thing is like these announcements are really close to what we want them to be and to what we need, and obviously it's a step in the right direction. But sometimes, right, when you start talking about things like this, so it's like, well, they can hold more players, but then it's like, oh, well, then that makes it harder to qualify, right? It's like this sort of, I think a lot of players are saying like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So I think it's a little bittersweet. I'm happy to have DLCs. I think we all are, right? We're happy to have DLCs. We're happy to have an announcement. We're happy to have a game plan for season 2. They're thinking about it. It's on the horizon, right? Obviously, it's not perfect, and we've spent the last almost 40 minutes detailing why it's not. There's so much more really that we could say about this. I feel like in a lot of ways this is just barely scratching the surface, but this is just our attempt at like talking through really in real time. We also have just heard about this, you know, some of what's going on. So I think what I want to say is, and obviously this is only going to reach certain people, you know, who even bothered to stay this long. But if you've stayed this long, 1, thank you. And 2, we do genuinely want to hear what you guys are thinking and feeling in the comments. We had some really great comments on our last video. People even coming back to the video to like detail all of these things that they're feeling after watching Worlds. And that's helpful. It's helpful for us. Yeah, it was really awesome.
I texted you and said, "This is great that people are engaging this way."
Yes. So we actually do genuinely read all the comments. Even if we don't reply to them all the time, we text each other about them and we'll be like, hey, look at this comment. So I do want to encourage people, like, we're just two people, you know, we only have our experiences, like Dick said. We can only know our opinions and where we're located and our financial situations and everything else that goes into how, you know, our experience informs our opinions. So really, truly, like, if there are things we missed out on, if there are things we didn't consider, if we're too negative, if we're too positive, you know, we want to know how the community is actually feeling. So please let us know in the comments. We've done our best to kind of tackle this in such a short amount of time. I do think, even though it's speculation, for me, it's helpful to hear someone like Dick say the things that he says, because I do think it helps calm me down a little bit and helps put some perspective on, like, what really is going on. You know, I know as players it's easy to get stuck in the, like, oh well, 3 only, you know, it sucks and nobody's ever going to qualify and blah 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 blah. But I do think hearing, like, even seeing things like from like Rochelle being like, hey, we see the feedback, we're talking about it, we're going to do our best to change it. Hearing people like Dick say, hey, I've actually worked with Pastimes and here's what I would imagine is possible behind the scenes, or at the very least here's why there's 3 in this specific area that might mean they could contract somebody else for the West Coast moving forward or in season 3. Like, those things are all very helpful. So we're doing our best. Thank you all for listening. Dick, is there anything else that you want to say on this?
Yes, I do. I'm
Great.
sorry. I know you want to wrap it up.
No, it's okay.
I want to offer maybe one solution that I think is reasonable. I don't know if they will take it, but I think it's reasonable. I think that they should offer some of the stores that have been keeping this game going, like, you know, Sharps Gaming, CCS, I believe ETB, like everyone that's featured in the Forbidden Mountains, like monthly, you know, thank you
tournaments, yeah.
SSG, Star City Games,
World Class Cards, Ink.
Right. Yes, thank you. I think that they should offer them something like, if you have a tournament with more than, let's say, 200 players or 250 players, first place qualifies for nationals. I think that would be free for Ravensburger. I think that people would be happier to go to these stores. I think that these stores would be more successful. I think people would care more about them. And I think that it would give people at least some way into the organized play system that they can do regionally.
Yes. I think that's a really strong suggestion. And like you said, it's free, it's simple, right? And we've seen already over in the UK, they're doing some sort of like Lorcana celebration that's like not hosted by Ravensburger, but it's like clearly endorsed. Like it's endorsed by Ravensburger. Thank you. It has their support. And so like it's sort of like affiliated with, if you will. Something like that is so easy to do over here. And like you said, it costs them nothing to be like, hey, CCS, thanks for running these huge events. We know we don't have anything, you know what, that's on the, let's do something on the West Coast. Something on the West Coast. They're like, hey, you know, we'll give you guys, you know, an opportunity to invite a player, even though it's only one. It's like something like that shows the community they care. And it also just helps people feel like they have a chance that they can like reasonably get to. So yeah, really strong. Thank you for that. I think that's really good.
Yeah. Otherwise, you know, please educate me. I am dumb. I say it all the time. Another thing, this channel is not owned or operated by the Forbidden Mountain.
Yes, they're completely unrelated.
People need to know that if they didn't know that, because kind of tired of hearing about it.
Yes.
I just happened to be on the Forbidden Mountain. Me and you are friends and wanted to do this.
Yes.
So.
Completely unrelated. Absolutely. And also, I'm here too, guys. Stop messaging Dick and forgetting that I'm here.
It's your channel.
All right. Yeah, all right, that was a lot. We did our best. I'm sure we'll have to do follow-up, right? There's a whole lot to discuss, but I think we're gonna wrap it up there for now. Thank you guys so much for watching and commenting and supporting the channel. It really means so much. So please like the video, comment, and subscribe, please. If everybody subscribed right now, we would be monetized, please. Okay. All right, thank you guys so much. We will see you out there hopefully at the next 3 DLCs. Take it easy.